Hello Roberto, I hope this video finds you well. This video will be depicting my code review for my personal project. This is a web application that calculates the temperature in Mars based on user input. So I started off my project here with a basic HTML script, which I did here, nothing too crazy. After that, I created a CSS file, which obviously is going to make our HTML code prettier, therefore our website more prettier. After that, I used JavaScript for using a very interesting library called 3.js. I don't know if you know what this library is. It's a very interesting library where it allows you to create 3D objects and render them, animate them, and use them on a website or a live server. So since I'm doing a web application for Mars, I wanted the 3D object to be a sphere. So with this library, I created a scene, a camera, and a renderer, and I actually created the sphere. With that, I placed a texture of Mars on it, kind of like a painting of how Mars would look. And then the sphere took that shape and that texture of Mars. After that, I animated a simple loop where Mars will be rotating toward its left all the time for it to look, a little bit more realistic. So that's like all the front end side of things on my project. Now, after that, I created this Python script which will calculate the temperature on Mars. Now, this for me was the hardest part because since I was a little kid, I've always been interested in astrophysics, right? So I've always had a very lingering curiosity to this type of things. But I obviously am not an astrophysics, so I went to my physics department and I spoke to one of my professors, and he kind of helped me, guide me, and tell me what should I research and learn. So after a lot of research, I finally deciphered on what should I do to calculate the temperature on Mars. So I actually wanted to explain you kind of the logic and the science behind it. Right here, we have a depiction of our solar system, just including Earth and Mars. And right here we have a depiction of how Earth rotates around the sun and how does Mars rotate around the sun. So, as you can see, Earth rotates around the sun as a perfect circle, kind of like a clock. So you can imagine right here where Earth is, kind of like 12 o'clock, right? So once Earth does a full rotation, it will mean that a full year has passed. Therefore, right here, if it's November 8th, 2020, once the Earth makes a full rotation and come back here, it would be the same date, but 1 year later, right? Now, when working with Mars, it's very different. Because as you can see, Mars does not rotate as a perfect circle, whereas he rotates as an ellipsis, which is more complicated because it is harder to figure out than where specifically is Mars when the user inputs a date. So for example, suppose you are the user and you pick November 8th, 2024. Since Mars rotates in an ellipsis, it will be harder to know on that date where is Mars. So what I did for that is that I created an API right here called getVariable, and this API basically enters the NASA website, right? And here it would be the input date. It would make certain parameters in order to fetch certain info, make the request, parse that info, and then give it to the calculation file, which with that info, it will store them into these variables, these 4 variables I need to start my calculations. After this, my code runs, and all of these are the astrophysics calculations to find out what's the temperature on Mars on that date. At the end, it will give you the temperature in Kelvin, Celsius, and Fahrenheit. So, coming back to the science behind this, after I find, basically what the calculations are doing is that after the API finds where specifically in its orbit is Mars on that specific date, now we, with our astrophysics calculation, what they are doing is that they're calculating how far away is Mars from the sun. And now that we know how far away Mars is from the sun, how much radiation does the sun emit, and how much of that radiation that the sun is emitting actually reaches Mars. And right after it reaches Mars, how much does Mars absorb? And once Mars absorbs, it also releases. So specifically, if a certain part of Mars is facing the sun, it will receive all of that radiation. But when Mars spins on its orbit and is facing backwards, during nighttime, it would release some of that radiation. Therefore, we take an average of what it received and what it emitted, and that would be approximately the temperature in Mars on that date. So that's basically what the calculations are doing. I also wanted to show you the code just to make sure that it works. Here, if we make a new terminal, I can depict the website. Here's the local server npx created, and here you can see my project. So as I said, this is using HTML and CSS, and then using the 3.js library, you can see my 3D object, and it's rotating on its axis. And here at the end, you can select the date, and that's pretty much it. So it's very interesting. Here I wanted to show you the calculations. I'm gonna make sure to run them real quick here. As you can see, after you run these calculations, at the end, it would say that the daily temperature on Mars is approximately 210 Kelvin. And actually, I just wanted to double check that just to make sure my calculations were correct. And you can actually go to the official NASA's website here, called this section called Horizon System, where you can pick the planet and a couple of other things, such as the date you want in specific and how many days you want the info. And after you hit generate, it will give you a bunch of info. And here we can see, let me search real quick for the temperature. Here we can see here we can see that the mean temperature in Kelvin is 210 Kelvin. So this absolutely proves that my calculations were correct. So yeah, this is my project. I'm very excited. I was very excited to show you this because I promised you that once I finish this, I will, show it to you. So I'm very proud of this. It was a lot of hard work, especially trying to balance this with my other classes, but I am very grateful if you've taken your time to listen to this. And I just want to know some feedback. If you like the project, if you're more interested in it, you can contact me and I can show you this project in person. So I hope you are okay. I hope hearing from you soon. Goodbye, Roberto.